There is a $1 wire that clears every trace of green out of a swimming pool. Permanently. Not for a week. Not until the next heat wave. Permanently. At the cellular level. You drop it in the water, copper ions release into the pool. They pierce the outer membrane of every algae cell they touch. They destroy the enzyme system from the inside out, and the algae dies. It cannot reproduce. It cannot return. The water stays crystal clear without a single bottle of algaecide. Ancient Egyptians documented this exact chemistry 4,400 years ago. The Greeks stored their drinking water in copper vessels to keep it pure. NASA built a copper ion purifier the size of a cigarette pack to keep astronauts alive on the Apollo missions. The University of Arizona proved copper ions are 1,000 times more effective against algae than chlorine alone. And it has been buried beneath a $5 billion pool chemical industry that needs your water to keep turning green. This is the $1 wire pool stores pray you never find. Welcome to Forbidden Ember. Hit subscribe and the bell. This is where we open what was sealed shut. Let me give you the scale. Right now, there are approximately 10.7 million residential swimming pools in the United States. The average pool owner spends between $500 and $800 per year on chemicals alone. 300 to 500 of that is chlorine. Another 100 to 300 goes to algaecides, pH balancers, shock treatments, and clarifiers. The global swimming pool chemical market hit $5.2 billion in 2024. It is projected to reach $9.8 billion by 2034. Companies like Clorox, BASF, Lonza, and Pool Corporation sell you branded bottles of algae killer season after season, year after year, decade after decade. Read the active ingredient on every single one of those bottles. You will find the same thing. Copper compounds. The same element that a piece of wire from any hardware store contains. The same element that has been killing algae for 5,000 years. You can buy 6 feet of bare copper wire for less than $1. Stay here with me because what comes next changes everything you thought you knew about the green water in your backyard. Take yourself back 4,400 years. Ancient Egypt. A papyrus scroll known as the Smith Papyrus, one of the oldest medical documents ever found, describes copper as a sterilizing agent for wounds and for purifying drinking water. Egyptian physicians understood that water stored in copper vessels stayed cleaner longer than water stored in clay or wood. They did not know why. They did not have microscopes. They did not have a periodic table. But they observed the result and they recorded it. That record survives to this day in a museum in New York City. Across the ancient world, the same knowledge appeared independently. In India, the Ayurvedic tradition of Tamra Jal, storing water overnight in a copper vessel, has been practiced for over 3,000 years. The water absorbs trace copper ions that destroy bacteria, fungi, and algae. In ancient Greece, Hippocrates, the father of medicine, prescribed copper compounds for treating infections. The Romans ran their drinking water through copper aqueducts and stored it in copper-lined cisterns. Persian kings drank exclusively from copper flagons to avoid waterborne illness on the battlefield. The Vikings took it even further. They sheathed the hulls of their longships in copper alloys to prevent algae and barnacles from growing on the wood beneath the waterline. That practice became standard for every navy in the world. The British Royal Navy copper-bottomed its entire fleet beginning in 1761. By 1800, copper sheathing was so universal that the phrase "copper-bottomed" entered the English language as a synonym for reliability. Every major warship that ruled the oceans for 2 centuries had copper beneath the waterline killing algae on contact. The same chemistry, the same element, the same reaction happening in salt water 200 years ago that happens in your pool today. Here is a fact that most people have never connected. Your home probably has copper pipes running through the walls right now. Have you ever noticed green slime growing inside a copper pipe? You have not, because it cannot. Copper pipes have been used in plumbing for over 5,000 years precisely because nothing biological can survive on the surface. The ancient Egyptians used copper pipes. The Romans used copper pipes. Your house uses copper pipes. And for the same reason, copper prevents biological growth on contact. Your plumber knows this. Your pool store will never mention it. If you understand what I just told you, you already know more about algae prevention than 90% of pool owners standing in the chemical aisle of their pool store right now. Subscribe. Share this with someone who dumps algaecide into their pool every 2 weeks and watches the green come back every time. What comes next is where the entire pool chemical industry starts sweating. In 1893, a Swiss botanist named Carl Wilhelm von Nageli made a discovery that would eventually explain what the Egyptians, the Greeks, and the Vikings had all observed for millennia. He found that certain metals, even in concentrations so small they were barely detectable, were lethal to living cells. He called it the oligodynamic effect, from the Greek words oligos meaning few and dynamis meaning force. A tiny force, an invisible force, but a killing force. Copper turned out to be one of the most potent oligodynamic metals in existence. When copper touches water, it releases positively charged copper ions, copper 2+. Those ions are drawn to the negatively charged cell membranes of algae, bacteria, and fungi. They pierce the membrane. They enter the cell. They bind to the enzymes that power photosynthesis. They shut down the electron transport chain that converts sunlight into energy. The algae cell cannot eat. It cannot breathe. It cannot divide. It dies. And here is the part that should make every pool owner sit up straight. Unlike chlorine, which dissipates in heat and sunlight within hours, copper ions remain active in water until they are physically consumed by killing a microorganism or removed by filtration. Chlorine evaporates. Copper waits. It sits in your water like a sentry, and the moment a single algae spore enters that pool, the copper ion finds it and destroys it before it can multiply. That is why the University of Arizona found that copper ions combined with a trace amount of chlorine are 1,000 times more effective against algae than chlorine used alone. Not 10 times, not 100 times. 1,000 times. That study has been published, peer-reviewed, and replicated. The pool chemical industry has never disputed it. They have simply never told you about it. Now here is the moment that should make you put this video down and text someone immediately. In the 1960s, NASA had a problem. They needed to purify drinking water for the Apollo astronauts heading to the moon. The water supply in a spacecraft is sealed, recycled, and finite. If bacteria or algae contaminated it mid-mission, the astronauts would have no alternative source. The water had to stay perfectly pure for the entire journey. Chlorine was too unstable, too harsh, and too difficult to manage in zero gravity. NASA and the Garrett Corporation developed a purifier that weighed 9 ounces. It was the size of a cigarette pack. It used no chemicals whatsoever. It released silver and copper ions into the water supply through a low-voltage electrical current. The copper killed the algae. The silver killed the bacteria. The system required almost no power and no monitoring. It kept the Apollo astronauts alive on their way to the moon and back. A NASA technical brief from the era noted that the silver ions did not impart an unpleasant taste to the water. No chlorine smell, no chemical residue, just pure minerally treated water that was cleaner than what most Americans drink from their kitchen tap today. That same technology now purifies the water in dolphin tanks, turtle habitats, and aquariums at major zoos across the country. If copper ionization is safe enough for dolphins and sea turtles, and clean enough for astronauts drinking recycled water in a sealed spacecraft 240,000 miles from Earth, it can handle the algae in your 15,000-gallon backyard pool. In 1989, NASA granted a commercial license to manufacture that same technology for swimming pools. The company Clearwater Pool Systems still uses it today. Intech America, which first commercialized copper ionization for pools, has been selling the technology since the 1970s. If copper ionization was good enough to keep astronauts alive on a spacecraft heading to the moon, it can handle the algae in your backyard. Share that fact right now. Text it to someone. That single detail is worth more than every $30 bottle of algaecide on every shelf in every pool store in this country. And here is the part they erased. Pull up the safety data sheet on any major brand algaecide sold in the United States. Read the active ingredients section. You will find copper sulfate, copper triethanolamine complex, copper carbonate, or a chelated copper compound listed right there. Sometimes under its chemical name. Sometimes hidden behind proprietary marketing language. Advanced mineral algae control technology. Copper-based biofilm disruption system. Ionic prevention formula. Same element. New vocabulary. $15 to $30 per bottle. A bottle that treats your pool once, maybe twice. You need 4 to 8 bottles per season. That is $60 to $240 per year on a compound whose active ingredient is the same metal sitting in the electrical aisle of the hardware store for less than $1 per foot. This is the playbook every single time. Take something that exists in nature, something anyone can access, something documented for 5,000 years, repackage it under language no one recognizes, and sell it back at a premium so steep it would embarrass a jeweler. Raw copper wire costs less than $1 per foot. A solar-powered copper ionizer that floats in your pool and continuously releases copper ions using nothing but sunlight. Costs $20 to $30 and lasts 2 to 3 years. The branded chemical alternative to achieve the same copper ion level costs $60 to $240 per year and requires constant reapplication. You are not paying for better chemistry. The chemistry is identical. You are paying for the bottle. You are paying for the label. You are paying for the pool store employee who tells you to come back in 2 weeks and buy another one. The $5 billion pool chemical industry does not need your pool to stay clean. It needs your pool to keep getting dirty. A permanent solution is a lost customer. A seasonal problem is a subscription. Subscribe and share this with someone who deserves to stop paying $200 a year for what their great-grandmother's copper bowl did for free. Stay with me. The vault we are opening next is the heaviest one yet. Let me show you the science they refuse to print on a single label. Your swimming pool is not just a container of water, it is an ecosystem. Every gust of wind carries algae spores, pollen, and bacteria into the water. Every swimmer introduces body oils, sweat, sunscreen, and organic compounds. Sunlight feeds photosynthesis in any algae cell that lands in the pool. Warm water accelerates reproduction. A single algae cell can divide and produce 16 million descendants in 24 hours under the right conditions. That is how a crystal-clear pool turns into a green swamp overnight. It is not negligence, it is biology. Chlorine fights this by oxidizing organic matter on contact. But chlorine is consumed in the process. Every organic compound it neutralizes reduces the available chlorine in the water. On a hot, sunny day with 6 swimmers, your pool's free chlorine level can drop below effective range in under 4 hours. That window is all the algae needs. One missed day. One pool party that runs too long. One weekend away. The algae gets a foothold, and by the time you return, the water is green. Copper changes the equation entirely. It does not oxidize. It does not get consumed by sunlight. It does not evaporate. It remains dissolved in the water at a stable concentration, typically between 0.2 and 0.4 parts per million, and it kills algae continuously, around the clock, regardless of temperature, sunlight, or bather load. It provides what water treatment scientists call a persistent residual, a guardian that never sleeps. At 0.2 parts per million, copper ions reach what microbiologists call the minimum inhibitory concentration for most common pool algae. That includes green algae, the free-floating kind that turns your water into pea soup. It includes yellow or mustard algae, the stubborn kind that clings to walls and resists normal chlorine shock. And it includes black algae, the kind that sends roots into concrete and plaster and is nearly impossible to kill with chlorine alone. Copper handles all three, not by brute force like a chemical shock treatment, by disrupting reproduction at the cellular level. The algae cannot adapt. It cannot develop resistance. The copper ion binds to the enzymatic machinery that every algae cell requires to survive. There is no workaround. There is no mutation that saves it. Now here is the honest part, and this matters. I am not going to tell you what every other channel would tell you. Copper alone does not replace chlorine entirely. Copper kills algae brilliantly. It provides some antibacterial action, but it does not oxidize organic matter. It does not break down body oils, sunscreen, sweat, or urine. For that, you still need a minimal chlorine residual or an alternative oxidizer. The difference is the amount. Without copper, a typical pool requires 1 to 3 parts per million of free chlorine. With copper ionization maintaining the algae prevention, you can safely reduce chlorine use by up to 85%. Some systems allow you to maintain as little as 0.5 parts per million of chlorine, a fraction of what a conventional pool requires. That means less chemical smell, less irritation to eyes, skin, and hair, less bleaching of swimsuits, less damage to pool equipment, liners, and surfaces, and dramatically lower chemical costs year after year. You also need to monitor copper levels. Too much copper, above 1 part per million, can cause blue-green staining on pool surfaces and can tint blonde hair green. The ideal range is 0.2 to 0.4 parts per million. A simple copper test strip, available at any pool supply store for a few dollars, tells you exactly where you are. Stay in range and the copper works invisibly. Go over and you risk cosmetic staining that a chelating agent can resolve. Anyone who tells you copper is dangerous at pool treatment levels is either uninformed or selling you something. EPA allows up to 1.3 parts per million of copper in drinking water. WHO allows up to 2 parts per million. Your pool target is 0.3. You are swimming in water that contains less copper than what comes out of your kitchen tap. Here is exactly what you do. Method 1, the simplest approach. Buy bare solid copper wire, 14 gauge or thicker, from any hardware or electrical supply store. Cut a 6-inch to 12-inch piece. Coil it loosely. Place it in your skimmer basket or tie it to a return jet where water flows past it continuously. The slightly acidic pool water, pH 7.2 to 7.6, will slowly dissolve copper ions from the wire surface through natural galvanic corrosion. Within 1 to 2 weeks, the copper level in your pool will begin rising toward the effective range. Test weekly with copper test strips. Adjust the wire length up or down based on your readings. This passive method costs less than $1 and provides continuous algae prevention for months. Method 2, for faster results. Buy copper sulfate pentahydrate crystals, also called bluestone, from a farm supply or hardware store. A 1-pound bag costs $4 to $6 and treats a standard 15,000-gallon pool multiple times. Dissolve the appropriate amount in a bucket of warm water and distribute it around the pool perimeter with the pump running. This delivers copper ions immediately at a controlled concentration. This is the same compound that water treatment engineers have used in municipal reservoirs for over a century. It is the same compound that the French scientist Millardet used in the Bordeaux mixture in 1885. The first commercially successful fungicide in history. Here is how that discovery happened. In the 1880s, a devastating vine disease called downy mildew was destroying the French wine industry. Millardet was walking through a vineyard in the Bordeaux region when he noticed something strange. The vines closest to the road were healthy. Every other vine in the field was dying. He investigated and discovered that the vineyard owner had been splashing a paste of copper sulfate and lime onto the roadside vines to make the grapes look unattractive and prevent people walking by from stealing them. The copper paste was never intended as a medicine. It was intended as a deterrent. But the copper ions killed the mildew fungus on contact. The sick vines were cured by theft prevention. Within 2 years, Millardet had perfected the formula. Bordeaux mixture became the first commercially successful fungicide in history and is still used worldwide today, over 140 years later. Method 3, the automated approach. Buy a solar copper ionizer. These are small floating devices that use a photovoltaic cell to generate a tiny electrical current that passes through a copper anode, releasing copper ions into the water continuously as long as the sun shines. They cost $20 to $35, and the anode lasts 2 to 3 seasons. They require zero electricity, zero maintenance, and zero recurring chemical purchases for algae control. One note on safety. Copper sulfate is a skin and eye irritant in concentrated form. Wear gloves when handling the crystals. Do not inhale the dust. Once dissolved and diluted to pool treatment levels, it is completely safe for swimming. It has been used in potable water treatment for over a century. The city of New York has used copper sulfate to control algae in its municipal reservoirs since the early 1900s. Think about every swimming season you have lived through as a pool owner. Really think about it. The first warm week of spring when you pull back the cover and the water is a swamp. The $40 shock treatment that barely makes a dent. The $200 trip to the pool store where they sell you 5 different bottles and tell you to come back in 2 weeks. The weekend you went away in July and came back to green water that took a week and $100 in chemicals to clear. The Labor Day party where the pool looked perfect in the morning and cloudy by afternoon because 15 people overwhelmed your chlorine level in 3 hours. The frustration of doing everything right and still losing the battle every single summer. You tested the water, you added the chlorine, you shocked the pool on Friday. And by Monday morning the walls were slimy and the water had that familiar greenish tint that makes your stomach drop. You drove to the pool store again. You spent another $40. You carried the bottles to your car feeling like you had been here before because you had been here before, every summer, for years. Every single one of those moments happened because your pool lacked a persistent algae-killing residual. Chlorine alone cannot provide it. It dissipates too fast. It gets consumed too quickly. It needs constant attention, constant testing, constant replenishment. Copper provides the one thing chlorine cannot. Patience. It stays in the water. It waits. It kills on contact. And it does not care whether you remembered to test the water this week. A pool owner in Florida switched to a solar copper ionizer in 2021 combined with a reduced chlorine program. His chemical costs dropped from over $600 per year to under $120. He did not see a single trace of green algae in 3 full Florida summers, 3 hurricane seasons, 3 stretches of 95-degree heat and afternoon rain every day. 0 algae. Total savings over 3 years, approximately $1,400. His pool store lost a customer. His pool stayed cleaner than it ever had before. His neighbors asked what he was doing differently. He told them. They stopped buying algaecide too. That is how this knowledge spreads. Not through advertising, through results. Through one pool owner telling another that they have been overpaying for decades for a problem that copper solved 5,000 years ago. Every civilization that mastered water purification understood this principle. Introduce copper, kill the biology, keep the water clean. The Egyptians did it with copper vessels 4,400 years ago. The Greeks did it with copper-lined cisterns. The Romans did it with copper aqueducts. The British Royal Navy did it with copper-bottomed warships. NASA did it with a 9-ounce ionizer on the way to the moon. The French scientist Millardet did it accidentally with copper sulfate on grapevines in 1885. Municipal water engineers have done it in reservoirs across the world for over a century. And you can do it in your backyard this weekend for less than $1. 5,000 years of proof. 2 centuries of agricultural science. 60 years of space engineering. $5 billion of industry pretending it does not exist. The oligodynamic effect does not care about brand strategy. Copper ions do not expire. A $1 wire has never charged a consulting fee. And the Egyptians never needed a pool store to keep their water clean. If this video opens something for you, subscribe and share it now. Every share puts one more piece of knowledge back into hands that a $5 billion industry spent decades keeping empty. Every person who learns the words copper ionization, oligodynamic effect, and 0.3 parts per million is one less customer paying 50 times the actual cost for the same chemical reaction their ancestors used for free. The next vault opens soon. What is inside is even heavier. If you found this fascinating, hit subscribe for more stories like this.